Okay, what we're going to tie now is a woolly sculpin. This is probably my favorite general attractor sculpin pattern. It's kind of got a lot of general imitation of a lot of things. It's got the broad pectoral fins here, which gives you the shape, gives the shape of a sculpin. It's got the flutter of the tail. It's just, it's a great attractor pattern. I tie this in white, black, tan, olive, chartreuse, yellow, you name it. Pretty much, if I had one fly, I think this would probably be it, just because it's so versatile a fish. We're also going to do that. I'm not going to tie it, but I also do it in a cone head, and the cone head is no different. It gives you a little bit faster through the water. It gives a little jigging action to it, and I'll show you how to do that on a different fly. In the cone head Madonna, we're going to tie exactly the same procedure in trimming the head, but on this one, most of the time I do it like this with just the regular head. So to tie it, like with most of my streamers, I tie with GX2, which is a gel spun good rod. I'm going to start the thread where I think the head's going to start. That's a good trick for all your flies, is to have a point where you start the fly where nothing else goes in front of this point. If it was a regular streamer just with a little head, you'd start your thread right here, and you wouldn't let anything go in front of that. That way you've got consistency. Something tells you to stop putting your materials any further than that, so you don't get a big bulky head that falls off the front of the hook. And it's just it's a reference point. You use your hook for as many reference points as you possibly can. In the same respect, one of the most common errors you see in fly tying, and one of the things that you're looking, the hallmark, is consistency. A fly that's not consistent, if you got 10 flies in the box, every one should look exactly the same. And the way you establish that is to achieve that, is to have something that tells you where to start and finish. And if you look where this thread's hanging down on the hook, if you see the barb right here, where the barb starts its ascent on the hook, right here where my scissors are pointing, see how the thread's hanging right there? If you were way up here and it was hanging by the point, you wouldn't have any reference. And here you got something that tells you right between the barb and the point of the hook is where the thread, when I let go of the bobbin, it just hangs there. So use that as a reference point. It's for consistency. Now we're going to take a plume of marabou. I like 1/4 ounce strung marabou. The longer shafts, the plumes are longer. I don't like the blood quills, the marabou shorts. They're just too short. I like the long, wispy marabou plumes. And again, everything is reference. Everything's you got to use the hook for everything. And so I take this. You shouldn't really put that stuff in your mouth like I just did, because there's all kinds of preservatives and all kinds of things to keep bugs out and dyes and stuff on this. If you're going to do a lot of flies, especially the darker stuff, put a sponge on your table and just run your finger through it to get it wet. But it's a lot easier to handle this stuff when it's like this. So now just a little dampness on it. And I'm going to use the hook as part of the gauge again. Everything's consistency. I'm trying to use the same material. I'm going to use different material, different plumes, but I'm going to have it try to look exactly the same throughout all the flies. So what I do is I measure the tail. I want it about the length of the hook. So I set that up there. I know how long that is. I transfer into my hand, give a pinch wrap, and now a good firm wrap. Now when I let go of that bobbin, you see it's sitting right exactly where it was when I started. That's critical. You'll see guys who when they first start tying, they'll put in their tail and they'll start moving everything forward as they go. They'll put their chenille, and there'll be a gap somewhere back here where they missed with their materials. They weren't using something to reference. I can see the thread hanging right in the middle again. Everything's right. So I've got that tied in. And you notice I'm not tying it off yet. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ends of a hackle. You can use schlappen. I don't like schlappen on this particular fly, but this is just a half neck that I pretty much ate up everything that was usable for dry flies. And now I'm going to use these bigger hackles, and I'm going to take one of the bigger ones that really isn't used for much of anything else. We'll pull that off of there, and I'm going to tie this in tip first, so the shortest barbs are on the bottom. I'm going to just take my fingers, my thumb and my finger, and I'm going to run right down and just straighten that hackle back a little bit. See how that's kind of laid? That's kind of in the way. That's kind of laid back like that. Alright, I'm going to just get a hold of the tip of that, and I'm going to lay that. I'm going to lay this. There's two sides to a feather. There's a convex side, or on the concave side, or the shiny and the dull. The shiny side is the top. When you look at the feather, that's what you see. And if you turn it over, you can't see it on this, but this is the shiny side, or the top, and the bottom side you can see is radically different in color. It's very dull. So I'm going to take this feather and I'm going to tie the shiny side at me. Okay, I got two wraps on there. Thread's hanging right where it belongs. And now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wrap forward, and I'm going to hold this stem in my left hand, and I'm going to wrap up the left side of this hook shank, and I'm going to go right to, again, everything's consistency. You're just looking for consistent, and there's more to it than cosmetic. If you have inconsistent flies, you'll find you've wasted time here, because you'll have 5 flies in your box. There'll be 2 of them you really like, 2 of them won't be very good, and they'll never get fished. So you might as well spend the time to make them all right, because then you're not wasting them in the box. But at any rate, consistency here. I'm stopping right there where I had that thread, because that's telling me that's where the head's going to be. I'll cut that off here, and then give it a good tight secure wrap. Then I'm going to go back. And I do that because I want a real secure body. So I wrap this up the side. It's 2-part. One is for just to build durability into the fly, and the other thing is, if I was putting more materials on, I might do it on each side, but I'm trying to build a taper. Everything's about tapers in this, trying to develop some sort of taper one way or the other. So I've got just on the inside, and then I come back, and I should have my thread hanging in the same point where I started before. I'm using the hook as a reference. Now I'm going to take some chenille. I like this variegated chenille. I use it on the olive and on this tan and cream one. I like the two-tone effect it gives you. And when you work with chenille, if you start with a fresh piece there, you can see it's got the fuzz all over the end. You just take your thumb and strip this stuff off of here, so you got the 2 threads bare. And I'm going to tie those in. And the reason you do that is because if you tie it in, you get a bump, and 2, it's not as secure. This is going to lash down real secure on just the hook with just those 2 threads on it. So I'm going to tie it in. Again, I'm dropping the thread, I'm dropping the bobbin. I've got it right here, so it's hanging. Everything's a reference point, over and over and over. Once you've done a bunch of them, you aren't going to have to check it quite as much. But so I'm going to tie it in, and then right now, before I do anything, I'm going to take 2 really. I'm going to put my finger on the back side of the hook, so nothing can roll over on me. And I'm going to just give it a pretty cinched down wrap right there. So what you don't want to have is want to spin around a little bit if you haven't got your materials on tight. So make sure that that's really tightened down. And then I'll just go forward here to where I had the thread begin in the first place, so I knew where to stop, so I don't have anything built up here in the hook. Alright, now I'm going to take the chenille. You can see doesn't matter that I don't have it tied in completely. I've just got the threads. I'll start one around the back side there, and I'll go. If you're not using a rotary vise, you're going to have to just spin it. I'm using a Renzetti, a full rotary vise here. But make sure if you don't have a rotary, take a look on the back side, right? The hook, the part that's facing away from you. One of the most common errors is to see on the back side of this hook here, on the back side of the hook, is to have a gap. There'll be a gap you won't see the material. You'll just see thread there. It's one of the most common mistakes you'll see in tying woolly buggers or this fly, a woolly sculpin. And then just build a nice even taper forward. Alright, I'm going to go right here to where the thread started, where I ended my thread, or started my thread, I mean. I'm going to put nice secure wrap. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this, I'm going to pick this chenille up. I'm not going to go down and cut it really tight. I'm going to come in about 1/8 of an inch above there, maybe cut it off. and then I'm going to do the same thing I did when I tied it in. I'm going to pick the little fuzz off of there. So now I've got just this little tiny bit of thread where the two threads come together. To make chenille, it's just like a dubbing loop. You put two pieces of thread, put the step between it, and it's spun. So it's all fuzzy sticking out there. Now that way I'm just securely tying down those two pieces of thread. Little half hitch here. If you weren't using a rotor, you wouldn't need to do the half hitch. Now I'm going to make sure that the shiny side of the feather, or the convex side, the shiny side's easier to see. I'm going to keep that forward, and I'm going to wrap this, making sure I got one good wrap right there, and I'm going to wrap this evenly forward, making sure the shiny side stays forward. And the reason you do that is because when it lays down, it'll lay back with a taper. If you had it the other way, it's going to, the natural bend of the shaft would be pointing forward. So if it's this way, it lays back and it's a little more streamlined in the water. So I'm going to cut that off pretty tight. Take a 3-finger grip here, just finish this off, and I'm going to get right back to where I started that thread in the first place. And now you can see that the hackle's laying back, and I've got to start. Now I can put the head on here, and what I'm going to do with the head is I'm going to use natural deer hair on this one. You're looking for a piece of deer hair that has a pretty good break in the hair. Alright, so you got a color change. The hair is not hollow from this color change up, and so it's not going to spin very well. Anything below this is going to spin quite well. Anything above it's not going to spin at all because it's not hollow. And all deer hair is not created equal. This stuff's, you really got to sort through your hair. If you can feel good spinning hair has a texture. It's real coarse. And if you look at the hair, you'll see waves in it. This one's kind of a in-between piece. It's not the best piece. It's not a bad piece. It's just kind of in between. But it's got a nice break in the hair right here. I like how this color is broke. It goes from gray and into the darker, and I just like the looks of that. The number one question that after the book came out, Modern Streamers, the number one question I was asked is how to tie decent collars and how to get a good clean collar to head union on the fly. And I'm sure in the first 6 months when the book first came out, I'm sure in the first 6 months I fielded 300 to 500 emails, letters, and stuff, and that was by far the most common question. All right, to get these clean collars on these heads, there's 2 or 3 things that are really important. First of all, you have to have pretty good hair. You can't have really bad, really thin hair that's just not got the clean break like I was talking about with the color. That doesn't work. The second thing is, and by far the most critical, is to clean this. What I've got here, I've got a little tool that Chris Helm sells. This tool holds a comb, makes it a lot easier to do consistently, if you're doing a bunch of them. And what I've got a little thing in my tying bench that I just set right in here. You can use a C-clamp if you've got an extra C-clamp, but it's built to just go into a hole and sit there, and then it just fastens onto this vise type thing. Just sits in there, and what that does for me is it allows me to take the hair, it's in my left hand, and I spin the hair just a little bit. I set it down in the comb, put my finger over it, and I pull all this excess out. And what you're going to see is with a couple pulls, this fuzz is what stops you from spinning consistently and having all that under hair. You can see in there it's really fuzzy. There's 3 types of hair. There's fur, there's directional hair, and there's guard hair. The guard hair is the stuff with the black tips on it. The directional hair is the shorter hair that hasn't got the color break. And then the under fur is this fuzzy stuff that makes all your hair spinning impossible if you leave it in there. If you don't have this little tool, it's pretty simple. You just take this stuff and you just comb it out and just get it nice and clean. And actually we survived without even a comb for a long time. Alright, so you just spin it, make sure it's nice and clean. If you don't have a comb, and it doesn't have to be a bone comb, you can take any old hair comb around and do that. So then just make sure, just look at it. You'll see if it's clean. You can look up into the light and you'll see that it's nice and clean. Now we're going to take a stacker, and this is a Magnum stacker here. It's a great big brushed aluminum stacker. It's great for doing really big hair pieces. Drop it in tip first, give it a couple bounces. By the way, if you've got a decent tying table, it's not like it's your wife's dinner table, and you do that, it leaves dents. Trust me on that. I have my own table, probably because of that. But when it comes out, I'm going to show you that one more time. When you stack the hair, don't pick your tube up. Turn the thing on its side like that, and then pull this away from the tube, and there's your hair all stacked neatly with all the tips exactly in line. So now we're just going to take this, put that back in my stacker. So now I've got all the tips. See how clean that break is right there? That's what I like about this hair. That's why I selected this piece. I like how dark this is, the tips. It's just clean. It really doesn't mean a lot to the fly. It's just something I like the looks of. And what I do here is again, we're back to the hook. We've got to use the hook for consistency. If you don't use the hook for consistency, you're going to have short little collars and long collars. And so what I do is I work off the eye of the hook, and I come in here and I try to get it just shy of half the length of the body, and then I transfer my hand here, and so I set it up, and I know I'm going to lose a little bit when I transfer. So when I start with a half the hook, by the time I transfer my hand and get it over here and everything gets set up, I end up about 1/3 the hook length. And that's when I tie this in, that's what's going to end up with. But you've got to learn to use the hook as your gauge, and it's all about consistency. And in case you don't know this, these flies aren't really tied for anybody but your fishing partner or somebody that looks in your fly box, because then they're scrutinizing everything you do. They're all out there trying to get you. Once you get the length established and you transfer your hand and you're going to tie it in here, most people will tie this in with all this hair hanging out the back. Now, to stop the temptation of using this hair, we're going to just simply cut it off completely clean. Get out of there. We're going to lay it on top of the hook. I'm going to leave myself about 1/8 of an inch to tie into, and I'm going to take 1, 2, the third one I'm going to lay over top. I'm not going to pull it tight yet, and I'm going to push my thumb right onto the top of that hair. So if you've done this right, what you're going to have is you're not going to have a lot of hair on the bottom here. You can see on this, you can still see the bottom of the fly. If you have to, you just go and you cut a little of this off. But that's why when you push your thumb down, you get a nice clean spread all the way halfway around the hook. And what you've got on the top is a nice big collar. From the bottom, where the fish is going to be seeing it, it's going to see pectoral fins. The other thing that does, it stabilizes the fly to keep it riding nice and flat. Then if you want to take a couple turns through that hair, that's fine too. But it should be really secured with just those 3 wraps. So you do 1, 2, each one gets progressively tighter. The third one I lay over the top, and then I put my thumb into it, cinch it down. Now we're going to take another piece of hair, same piece of hair, and I'm going to cut a pretty big piece of this hair. As you can see, pretty big gob of hair. Starts out pretty thick. That's one thing about cleaning the hair, is from where you start to when you finish cleaning it, you're going to lose at least 1/3 of the hair. I mean, that much of that hair is gone. So, I mean, you've got to start with more than you really want. So I'm going to clean that out. You cannot over clean deer hair. The more you clean it, the more you prep this material, the easier the fly is going to be to tie. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to cut this is just a habit I got into. I watched Chris Helm do this once. Chris is one of the best hair tiers in the world, and he always trimmed the bottoms off, and somehow I got in the habit of doing the same thing. So I'm going to start with a piece of hair that's about 1 inch long. And like I said before, if you look at this end of the hair, it's a little darker right here. If you can see that, I've cut most of it off. That part of the hair doesn't spin. It's not hollow. So I'm going to go into the lighter side of the hair where it's hollow. I'm going to tie that in. I'm going to put this right on top of the hook. I'm going to go right into that clean, gray part that's hollow. And you can see that also. If you don't see a real distinct break in the hair, you'll see, in the color I mean of the hair, you'll see the wavy part of it's just kind of squiggly, the hair is. And that's the hollow part. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3 wraps on there. The third wrap, what you've got to get used to watching is when you put this hair on the top, the hair's going to do, it's going to start in a bundle like this. And you're going to have thread wrapped around that bundle. And when you tighten that down, it's going to squeeze the thread's going to squeeze around the hook, and it's going to squeeze that hair down. It's going to go back to that same thing that we talked about with the collar. You got a flat piece of hair, we put thread around the hair, and we squeeze it, and we're going to try to get it to a 45. To do that, the whole hair bundle has to spin around the hook, because it's basically, the thread is unwrapping. It's just spinning down towards the shank of the hook. So I've got 3 wraps on here. Each one got a little bit tighter, first, second, third. And then if you watch this hair right on the top here, when I pull that, okay, it's just done a half, it just did a full, it just did almost another half a turn. It went wrapped all the way around the hook, and now as you see, I've got a big starburst on this hook. See how wide and flared out that is? What that means is that the thread tightened nicely down around the hook, and I've got all the excess thread wraps away. Ideally, what you want here is one good turn of thread around the hook. And because if there's 2 or 3 loose ones in there, when you go to trim this, you're going to hit your thread. But you're never going to get that starburst effect you've got right here. If I keep pulling on that, you see how hard I'm pulling on that hook? I'm just flexing the hook. It's not going anywhere. If it continued to spin, and you watch the hair go all the way around the hook, it went 1.5 times around. If you kept pulling and it kept spinning, poof, you're going to have hair going everywhere. It's just unwrapped. It's totally lost. All the thread is unwrapped. It's tightened down back, and there's nothing left to do it. If it continues to spin, chase a wrap right down the middle, right where you had the other ones, and just keep pulling. When it stops, it's done. I've got 1.5 turns. If it's hanging down, I've got 1.5 turns. Right here, I've got 1 3/4 coming around here. And I just pull my hair back. Just work your thread through the hair. Just kind of try not to mat any of these hairs down. And go in here. I'm just going to back it up just a little bit, just so I can get to the eye of the hook. Now, if you wanted a really big fat head, if for whatever reason, everybody's got a different style with these. I don't want a really heavily compressed head, or packed head, if you will. That's when you pack a head, and that's real common if you're doing decorative stuff, you want a really tight head, you pack this really tight, you just keep trying to put more and more pressure on it. I don't want that. I want a nice loose head on this fly, because what I want it to do is absorb water. I don't want it, the tighter I pack that hair, the more buoyant the head's going to be. It's going to be like a bass popper. The tighter I get it, the less water can go inside the hair, and so it sits on top of the water. I can't get it to dive. This way the hair is going to be nice and loose. Water's going to go inside there. It's going to get saturated, and it'll be just the right consistent, or the buoyancy that I'm looking for. Now I'm going to put my finger, I'm going to do a half hitch here, just getting the hair out of the way. If you snag a couple of them, that's all right. But you're trying to get most of them out of the way. With this GX2 thread, it's really difficult to cut. So you may want to take your razor blade and cut it. If you get in there and just bump it with your scissors, you can get it to go. But it's pretty tough stuff. For the trimming of the head, I use double-edged razor blades. You can buy them anywhere. You can buy them at Walmart, Kmart, any of the superstores. They're getting harder to find. So when you find them, and especially if you can find them on sale, grab a bunch of them, because you really don't get that many to a side. You don't get that many heads. If you work pretty consistently with hair, if you get 6 flies to a side, that'd be a lot. So you don't get forever out of them. If you don't mind working with it and fighting it a little bit, you can get more. But I want it to cut really quickly, real smooth, because this is another real annoyance to people tying deer hair, is they don't like to sit and trim it with their scissors. As you'll see here in a second, it's not going to take me long to do this. And these are working flies. I'm not going to sit and really fight it to get every little hair. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the razor blade in my finger like this, because I'm going to try to draw this at a kind of at a 45-degree angle. I'm going to turn the head over, the vise over, so I can see the bottom of the fly. And I'm going to put this here, and I'm just going to draw it at a 45-degree angle, so I've got a nice flat cut. And you can see that that's pretty flat. I pretty much have got all the hair out of the way. I can go and, I'm pretty much done right there. Now I'm going to take this blade, and this is where you have to be careful. I mean, obviously you're not going to want to be, juggling these blades. They're double-edged razors, and they're exceptionally sharp. So I'm going to take this blade, and I'm going to bend it. I'm going to put it in my fingers, and I'm going to bend it just like that to the shape I want. All right. Once I get it bent to the shape I want, I simply get over top of the hook, and this is a pretty critical element to this whole cutting thing, because I see a lot of people when they first start, they sit there and they try to just balance their hand and go like this. When I do it, I take the fly right here and I just rest my hand, something on my hand, doesn't matter where you do it. I generally put my left hand on the back side of the vise, and I rest my fingers from the back side. I rest the back of my right hand against the inside of my left hand. And what it does, it allows you to just push, and you actually get more leverage, because you're not sitting, trying to fumble around and you end up lobbing half your collar off. So I just set it here, and I take a single cut just like that. I get a pretty rough shape in there. Second one, I pretty much have it done. Now there's a few hairs, hanging out here, but I've got 2 cuts on that fly, and my head's pretty much done right now. If I want to go in right now and clean up the few little excess hairs that are left hanging there, I simply go into the collar and I push my finger against it like that, and then I bump that hair with my razor blade. If you bump your finger, you won't cut it. If you try shaving it, you'll cut it. Again, from experience, it's like pounding your stacker on your wife's table. Not a good thing. So I've got the basic shape of the head right now. You can see I've taken it out of the hook out of the vise, and I've got it in my left hand. And what I'm going to do is I've got the shape of the fly, and I'm just going to take the scissors going from the back forward, and I'm just going to trim the excess hairs right there, and I'm pretty much done. So if I wasn't sitting here jabbering and I just went to trim that head, I probably could have had that head trimmed in about 10 seconds. Now if you consider the difference between sitting here and trimming like that, pretty much everything's done. I mean, it's pretty consistent. I've got a rogue hair here and there. If you want to get pretty anal about it, you can go in and just, cut them all out of there and just trim it all off. These are working flies for me. This is the shape I'm looking for. I've got exactly what I want. I've got a nice broad collar, got a nice fat, flat head. Sculpin are very wide-headed. That's pretty much exactly what I'm looking for. See how broad that is right there? That's exactly what I'm trying to achieve. A nice broad head, nice big fat collar like this. Again, that has two elements. It's got one, it's a pectoral. When it's wet, and this is going to mat down. From the bottom, I've got a nice wide pectoral. I've got a broad head, just like the Sculpin is. And the other thing it does, aside from showing pectorals, is it'll stabilize this fly. It's flat on the bottom, broad wings out to the side, the pectoral fins, and that stabilizes the fly so it rides through the water. When you're aggressively stripping that fly, it'll ride nice and flat. If that's off to one side, if the underside, if this isn't flat, what you look down at, when you look down that fly, if it's not flat, it's going to have a tendency to ride the opposite direction. If this hair here was off to the side, it would track that way. So when you look at it, right, and when I looked underneath there to show you that, I saw just a couple hairs in the collar right there, and I trim them off. Got a couple over here, and all I did was I got that really flat. I mean, it's just dead on flat, and that allows you, as you look at it a little more close up, you'll see that it's just flat on the bottom. All right, that allows the fly to track nice and smooth, and allows you to really get after it and be aggressively stripping this fly. This is my absolute go-to fly in yellow light. If the light's low and off in the sunset and it's coming down, crossing the water, and you get that kind of yellowy tint, I always have this fly on for a while, to start with. But that's the woolly Sculpin.